Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, welcome back to my video game review series. So those of you who have been following my channel will know that recently I've been reviewing some fighting games in the X-Men series. In my last video I reviewed X-Men Children of the Atom, which originally came out in 1994 as an arcade title, later being ported onto the PS1, which is the version I decided to review. Today we're going to be looking at another X-Men fighting game, X-Men Mutant Academy, released in the year 2000, developed by Midway Studios. Interestingly, this game was actually released as a tie-in to the first X-Men movie, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was released on the same day. Despite being a tie-in for the movie, however, other than some bonus features, the game has practically nothing to do with the movie, and isn't based on the movie's story at all, and even its overall style and visual aesthetic is completely different to the movie. Instead, like Children of the Atom before it, the game appears to be based more on the 90s X-Men animated series, which of course was hugely popular at the time that this game came out. So yeah, despite technically being a movie tie-in, I wonder if the game was actually in development before the movie was, and maybe originally meant to be a standalone thing, but I digress. The game is a one-on-one fighting game similar to the likes of Tekken, Street Fighter and Dead or Alive. The game has several different features and modes. First of all, you have a pretty useful tutorial where you can select a character, and you get a series of challenges that introduce you to the game's overall controls and technicalities, as well as the various combinations and super attacks. The game actually has a pretty nuanced and in-depth combat system, with a whole bunch of different moves, attacks and combinations to pull off, all of them unique to each playable character, as well as some pretty badass super moves that each character has. The game's main feature is arcade mode. In this mode you select a character from the roster, and you fight through a line of other characters to progress through the story, taking them on one at a time. Just like with Children of the Atom, you get a pretty small roster of characters, some of them from the X-Men and some of them from the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood characters will initially be locked off to you, until you fulfill the necessary requirements to unlock them, which basically means you have to play through and complete the arcade mode with the X-Men characters first. The X-Men characters are Cyclops, Wolverine, Storm, Beast, Phoenix, and Gambit. From the Brotherhood you have Magneto, Toad, Mystique, and Sabretooth. So a decent lineup of characters, but I do think they could have added more. Sadly, some other characters are only present in the handheld versions, which is a shame because the roster here is pretty small, and I think it really could have done with some more characters. Thankfully the sequel, Mutant Academy 2, has a lot more characters in its roster, but that's a story for another time. Each character has their standard punch and kick attacks. These can be performed high and low, and you can try out and experiment with different combinations. You also have some grappling attacks from each character that all look pretty cool, and pretty badass. What I like about the game is that each character feels very different from one another. Some characters such as Wolverine, Toad and Sabretooth are very effective from close range, and have much more powerful and fluid melee attacks. Other characters such as Cyclops and Storm are more effective from long range. Cyclops in particular, who I had an absolute blast playing as, since if you can learn to master his laser beams then you can pretty much cheese the whole game.
Perhaps more time in the danger room.
Some characters are more effective against others, and the characters you prefer will just depend on your personal preference and how you prefer to play the game. As I mentioned before, each character has their own super move. There are 3 of these for each character that can be unlocked by landing consecutive attacks on your opponent, and building up momentum with your combo meter. When you fill each meter up, you unlock a super move. Some of these are absolutely badass and look incredible. They can really make a difference in tough battles. They are very cinematic and effective in combat. Wolverine even has an ability to heal some of his health back. And Cyclops' huge blast is incredible, I loved using it. So the combat of the game is pretty awesome. One issue I did have with the game, however, is that some of the controls feel a bit unresponsive, and some of these combos and super moves would just seem to refuse to register for seemingly no reason. I would often have to press each button combination multiple times in order to pull off some of these moves. This issue was fixed in the sequel, but in this game it's a bit of an issue. What's annoying about it is when you spend time trying to pull off these moves, the AI can take advantage of it and attack you. It's not a massive issue, but it's a minor annoyance. Once you play through the game with each character, you get an ending cutscene for each of them. These are pretty short, but I appreciate their inclusion nonetheless. So that pretty much covers the arcade mode. You also have a survival mode. This is pretty self-explanatory. You choose a character and see how long you can last, taking on other characters from the roster and trying to win as many battles as you can. It's a nice little feature and I enjoyed it for the most part. You also, as expected, have a 2-player versus mode, where you can play against a friend. Again, pretty standard for a fighting game of this kind. In addition to this, you also have several interesting unlockable features. For example, each character has several alternate costumes that can be unlocked. You have their standard costume based on their classic comic design. There is also an alternate comic version, as well as each of the characters who made an appearance in the movie, having their movie costume. This includes both the X-Men who have their movie X-suits, and the Brotherhood who have their outfits from the movie. These all look pretty cool and it's an awesome feature. The game also has a gallery, which includes several viewable features. You can replay each of the characters' ending cutscenes from here, as well as the game's intro. You also get some concept art to look at. This is quite cool, and I like it when games include these. Another feature you get is a trailer for the movie, as well as some behind the scenes photos of the movie's development. Fans of the movie will probably appreciate these. Adding to the authenticity of the game, some of the voice actors from the 90s animated series come back to reprise their roles for the game, and each character has their own one-liners after winning battles.
That the best you can do?
I don't think you've quite got a handle on this fighting thing.
Kicking your butt make Toad happy.
As a huge fan of the series, I appreciate this. So yeah, that pretty much sums up my thoughts on X-Men Mutant Academy. It's a great fighting game for the most part, and it's an improvement on Children of the Atom in pretty much every way. It was certainly ahead of its time, and I prefer it to a lot of modern day fighting games if truth be told. I give the game a solid 7 out of 10, a great fighting game that holds up pretty well. Thanks for watching guys. I really enjoyed playing and reviewing X-Men Mutant Academy. Stay tuned for my next video where we're going to be reviewing the sequel, X-Men Mutant Academy 2. I'm really looking forward to reviewing that game. Let me know what you guys think. Once again, I have a lot of reviews coming to the channel in the near future. Thanks for watching and God bless.